I'm Samira Lopez from TVC Spotlight.
Lovely to meet you, Tamara.
Nice
Thank you so much for coming.
No, of course. I appreciate you having us here.
My name is Britta Martini-Niles. I'm the Executive Director of the Lighthouse program for grieving children.
Of course.
Do you want to come have a tour?
Yes, I would be more than happy to.
So thank you very much for coming out to our tiny little cottage over here. The Lighthouse is, as you saw, a small little place, so I have to bring you up straight into our parents' room.
Very cozy though. So this is the parents' room that we're standing in.
This is the parents' room. We have, our program is primarily for the grieving child and teenager, and I will explain to you in a moment why that is. But we also support parents who want to support their grieving child. So clearly the parent is grieving the loss of either their partner or even worse, their child. But they're also grieving to see that their other surviving child is in grief. So the parents that come here support each other with the help of a facilitator to understand how they can support their child on the journey. That is not going to be easy, but hopefully with the help of this little community that we provide at the Lighthouse, it will become easier over time. So this is where the parents would meet, while the children have their groups up there.
Okay, so it's more of a peer support network for the parents here while the children do their own separate grieving program elsewhere?
Absolutely right. You're completely right. Everything that we do is peer support. We don't offer counseling. Everything we do is peer support. So that makes the Lighthouse program very different to other grief support programs. We do believe that grief doesn't come in distinct stages, but that it is sometimes you're sad, sometimes the child is angry, sometimes the child is misbehaved, sometimes the child is withdrawn, but it doesn't come in neat stages of grieving.
Of course.
So our sense is that we meet the child wherever they are, and we have trained volunteers who facilitate the groups. They're trained by our professional staff who have credentials as clinical psychologists or social work, but they train our volunteers, and the volunteers are very much in the background. It's the children who are there for each other, and the same applies to this group with the parents.
So they're there to somewhat give direction, but a lot of it is coming from the actual people participating in the group.
Completely right.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they know what it's like. They know what it feels like, and they have been there themselves. And our groups are very much open-ended, so we might have maybe a child that was just recently bereaved, and another one that has already been with us for a year. That's very important too for the kids, to see that there's a journey, that it will get better, and so again, they provide that support to each other. Different
stages, again, within the process, and may happen over time, so it's nice to have that sort of, I wouldn't say experience, but maybe that sort of a background if someone's been there for a year and they can participate with someone that's been there for like 6 months.
Very true.
Okay, so let's actually take a look at one of the actual children's rooms.
Okay. This is where a lot of the really young children come. Our children are aged between 3 and 18.
Oh, wow.
You can see from this room that this is not for the 18-year-olds.
Well, you never know. I would be in here.
The idea is that a child really doesn't talk so much about grief, but a child plays.
Okay.
And in the play, they resolve a lot of the issues.
So what is this room called then?
This is the make-believe room. So you'll see, for instance, the children have done artwork here where they express how they feel, that parts of them are angry, parts of them are mad, and then they have got dress-up materials. So they, for instance, here we have got a doctor's uniform. And these kids who come here, they are very familiar with hospitals, unfortunately.
Of course. Right.
Here they have the power to be a doctor that makes sure that these teddies do not die of cancer. It's an incredibly powerful experience for the child because they feel incredibly disempowered by the death. It is something that has really pulled their reality to shreds, and
so they're able to somewhat control it throughout this make-believe room by dressing up and being that doctor that can actually save someone this time.
Same thing here. Look at this guy. This is
a giant X-ray.
It's a giant X-ray or bones. Again, very much the world that they have experienced for the past months, and being able to ask, what does that mean? The children cannot necessarily ask their parents, what does it mean to have cancer because they see that the parent is struggling with this. The parent is mourning the loss of their spouse or of their child. And these children that come here, they get that something is completely different in their family, but they do not have the opportunity to actually ask very much. So the make-believe is one aspect of our grief work, and the arts and crafts is another aspect. Again, the idea that children don't really communicate like we by sitting down with a cup of tea and telling you how I feel.
Right, it's not the same.
That's not how children grieve. Children grieve differently. They grieve by expressing it physically or through their play or through their artwork. So we do a lot of memory projects. Some of the children have the need to really make sure that their dead person is remembered.
Of course.
You know, one of the things that is so sad about grieving is that the adults find it incredibly difficult to talk to a grieving child about death. They want to go and grab that child and make it all better.
Of course, and
erase all the grief. And as a consequence, well-meaning adults exclude the child from the grieving process. Here they can come and actually ask what it means, these things, death and the medical side, or where does the body go? They can also remember the person who has died. This is again something that we rush in and want to make it better for them, and so we don't talk about mum who's died because I don't want to upset the child. And the child gradually starts to forget this mum. Okay. And then they start really feeling guilty about it. And so this is kind of a way of saying, coming to terms with that new reality, their new normal. And again, being able to ask questions and get some understanding. And some of it has nothing to do with grieving, you know, just being together.
Just being a kid as well, because they still are children at the end of the day. I've noticed you have a theme, obviously, of Lighthouse. This is the name of your program, and I'm loving this wall over here. Can you tell me what this is?
You're very observant. The Lighthouse theme is here throughout. And I think this lighthouse probably best exemplifies what it is. This lighthouse, it's on safe land. There's the raging sea. And it throws into that dark sky, right? It throws a beam of light. And what it signifies is safety, warmth, security, sense of stability, and a sense of hope. That's what we want to do at the Lighthouse.
Of course. Throwing that light, obviously, into the darkness and into the grieving process and making them cope with it.
100% right. When a lot of people, when they hear about the Lighthouse, immediately think, oh my gosh, it must be such a sad place. And it isn't. It is, the sadness has happened to the children. The death has happened. We cannot take that away from them, but we can here provide them with a space to understand what it means to have been with that person and to now no longer have that person in their lives, and to find resources in themselves how to live afterwards.
No, I've noticed too that it's not a very sad place. The colors are very bright, and I'm loving what's in this room here. The colors are great.
So this over here.
What room is this?
This is our talking room, or talking circle. And again, really bright. All of these cushions were hand sewn by one of our volunteer board members. And
what usually happens in here?
The kids start in this room, and they sit together and say why they come here. So the groups will meet in the evenings, and you would sit here and say, my name is Tamara and I'm here because my father died. Or I would say, my name is Britta and I'm here because my brother died. And if I don't want to talk about it, I pass. Okay. You don't have to talk. But most of our children want to say, I am here because my mum died. And then very often they talk a little bit about maybe some themes, maybe there's some things that have just come up, maybe one child has just recently been to a funeral, maybe something has happened that this week was really difficult because it's just after Christmas. Right. Or maybe it is because school started and they have not had mom or dad at the gate, or something like that, that triggers a discussion. And then they will start here. Okay, and then what do we do in this area? This is very cool. This is, you know how sometimes it's hard to speak about things that have to do with you? Yes. But if I let my finger puppet talk, then I can say all sorts of things and I get them out, even though I don't really say it.
Oh.
So same thing for the kids. They have got this little puppet theater and they can talk about death, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just talk about feeling mad. Why is it that this happened to me? Right? Why did my family get torn apart? And then they can play about that. So that's what happens in here. So the circle starts in here, the group starts in here, and they do all sorts of other stuff. And towards the end, they come back here, and we close the group in this circle with the view to something positive.
Okay.
So we don't send the child out into the week with sadness, but what are you looking forward to in the next week to come? So
Hope
again,
and
always,
optimism.
absolutely, very much so.
I know that obviously, speaking of anger, if they do want to act it out, you do have another room, the volcano room, which I can see behind me here.
Yeah. This room is a very important room. Volcano room, a room to erupt and let rip. Kids are angry. They're angry that this happened to them. They're angry that they lost a father or mother and that their brother or sister died. And here they can let that out. Some of the kids just run into the walls, and here they can't hurt themselves.
Of course, because it's padded.
All padded, that's right. And again, it's cheerful, right? It's not a dungeon. And the philosophy, our philosophy, is that feeling is in the child. Let that feeling come out here in safety and in a controlled environment where that is okay. And then we probably make sure that it doesn't come out elsewhere. So we don't have the kid all of a sudden become disruptive at school, or angry at school, or a bully at school. Maybe they can just find a way of venting it over here.
Of course.
That's not to say that's perfect, but it helps them.
No, I see, it totally makes sense. And I realize a lot of the areas you have are mainly for children. And there was apparently a project in mind for a teen space here. And where's that located, or going to be located, hopefully?
Oh, I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because this tiny little space, this is it. So the teenagers also meet in this talking room. And the teenagers mostly talk. They don't, some of them do some artwork, but mostly they speak. For the teenagers, coming here and having a private space is more important than for the children yet.
Of course.
Anything is more private to
It's
a teenager, right?
Exactly. They're a different stage in life, and that was there too, so I understand.
So you want to be far away from the adults, and you don't want to be overheard and all of that. Which means that given the setup that we have here, we can only always have one group at a time, because the smaller kids, they spread up all over. The teenage group need that privacy. And when we have the children's group taking place, we have the adult group take place over there. So we cannot physically fit anybody else in here, which means that we can only have one group a night. But we would have an opportunity to develop our basement.
The basement?
Can I show you?
Of course. We're going to go check out this basement and see what we're going to develop. So we're headed towards the basement right now. This is interesting.
Hold on tight.
Yes, I can well, it's very big down here, though. I can see what you mean by having a lot of space, not a lot of head space, but okay.
It is. And currently it's inhabited by the spiders and the like.
My favorite.
So what is very cool about this is the Lighthouse is supported by a tremendous community. So we actually had a home supply store that just donated some renovating materials and expertise. And we have got a lot of volunteers in the community who come forward and say, hey, we can help you with this. We had some people put up those shelves over there.
Okay.
But we were all excited because they said they would renovate this basement for us. We had all of that lined up. And now came the kicker that because it is now no longer a private home, but it is used as a business, we need egress. So we need an actual exit to get out this basement. The windows in themselves are not big enough to get the planning permit.
Right, for a commercial property, you need that second exit, of course. And I can see that it's obviously not down here, but maybe in this corner here it could work?
Yes. The only problem is, it could work in all sorts of locations. The only problem is it costs a lot of money, and we don't have it. So I'm hoping that we could maybe get somebody, a builder, to say, I do this. And we would be so excited because it would allow us, if we could put a window, a door and an exit somewhere, we could effectively double our space. Because if you think about it now, what I've shown you upstairs,
Yes.
one of the groups could always be down here.
Yes, you can have a separate group for the teenagers. Again, there's privacy down here. They're away from...
Exactly. And so it would mean we could have a teenager group at the same time as a kids group upstairs.
And the parent group.
Very much so. And right now we don't have any of that.
Right,
so
and make it very functional.
Yeah, and we have the space already for a kitchen. Food is very important for kids.
Oh, especially teenagers, they're growing.
There you go. So we have all of the basics already here. And we don't need, I'm not talking, you know, marble counters or anything like that. But just somewhere so we could microwave something, maybe reheat some pizza or something like that, a functioning fridge. There's a washroom over there. So we have the basics already here.
Right, you just want to make it a bit more functional by obviously finishing it and creating that other door.
Yeah, right now we're just storing our arts and crafts materials, and we're accommodating our neighbors, the spiders. But we can't have the people down here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you for the tour, and then I think we'll be talking to you later on, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. I'm sitting here now with Jo Fallon, who is the co-founder of the Lighthouse program for grieving children. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to create or co-found the Lighthouse program for grieving children?
Death is one of those subjects that people are very uncomfortable speaking about, and particularly with children. And children's ability to heal themselves, as in with anyone, is innate. So we can all have the ability to heal from trauma, as long as we're given the correct ability, the correct environment in which we can do that. And that means non-judgmental, safe, and allowing people to move at their pace. I lost my parents when I was young, and so this is a subject I'm very passionate about, and is allowing children to understand what it is that's happening to them, because their life has altered, it's been blown out of the water, and for them to come to somewhere that is safe with other kids who understand what that's like, it helps them to feel less isolated, that it is normal. And by doing that and being able to work through their experiences, they can begin to heal themselves so that they can reinvest back into life and be healthy adolescents, healthy adults, go on to have healthy relationships. And depending upon where they are in the world, they impact their community by being healthy.
So I'm sorry again to hear about your loss. When that happened for you, were there sorts of resources that you can use? Or was something like this created back then?
No, there wasn't, which is again is of course why I'm so passionate about what we've been able to achieve here in Halton and Peel.
And how long have you been servicing or in the community for grieving children right now?
12 years.
So that's back in, I guess, the 90s.
Yep, a long time.
Yeah. What is the goal here, or the mission that you have for the grieving children?
Is to allow children and adolescents to be able to have their experience, to be able to understand, to be able to take their love and their memory of someone from being where they can touch someone to being inside them, and knowing that love does go on forever. And it helps them, how can I say this, it allows them to reinvest back in their lives by knowing more about themselves. And you can only know more about yourself if you go to those places and you understand that they're normal.
Oh, interesting. Now you're mentioning too about children develop differently at different stages. So a child that's 5 may not experience the grieving process the same as a child that's 13. So then how do you accommodate for that?
So we have groups that are age specific, because as you were saying, Tamara, you're absolutely right. A 5-year-old's concept of death will be totally different to that of a 14-year-old. So some younger children don't understand that that person isn't ever coming back. They can't smell them, they can't touch them, and they can't see them anymore. And they don't understand that. By coming here, they're with other kids who understand what that's like, and that enables them to know a little bit more about themselves. And again, we have children who come back and revisit us at different stages of their adolescence, because at 13, it means something very, very different, because you're starting to be much more aware of what is around you and what other families look like, and your own loss and how that shapes your life.
And what about for parents?
Parents, we have this room that we're sitting in here is our caregiver room. So at the same time that the children are in group, the parents or the caregivers come here because suddenly their life has been turned upside down. Their plans, their hopes and dreams of what they expected to be happening in the future has altered. So they need help in their own loss and their own grief and how to bring a grieving child up. What is normal for a 13-year-old boy? What is grief-related? For the parents in this room who have had a child die, that's against the normal order of things. So
Right.
how do they manage to get up every morning and move forward and pay their visa bills? That's an important part of their own by being with others as well.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Well, I want to thank you, Joe Fallon, who is the co-founder of the Lighthouse program for grieving children, for being on the show with us today.
My pleasure, thank you.
Of course. And stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Lighthouse.
Oh, thank you. I'm loving the room. Tell me about the programs that you offer here.
We offer quite a few different programs. The main one that's the most important is peer support groups for grieving children between 3 and 12 years old, teens between 13 and 18, and also support groups for their primary caregivers as well. And these groups are for people who are bereaved. But we are also excited about a brand new kind of support group that we'll be offering, not for bereaved kids, teens, and adults, but sort of like before the bereavement. It's called our WHAM groups, and it's the Hey, What About Me groups, and they're for families who a family member has been diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Okay, so not quite deceased, but
Not
sick.
deceased, yes, but the death is imminent in 2 or 3 years. And what we want to do is we want to help these families with young children figure out how they're going to be dealing with this and give them the support that they need to be able to prepare for the death in 2 or 3 years.
So then how would one go about coming in and being part of this program?
Basically, you call.
Oh.
Definitely, and that goes for families who want to be in our program. So typically the primary caregiver will call. Sometimes we've had teenagers call directly, and said, my mom died, my dad died, or my brother and sister died, and they want to get their kids in, or they want to get themselves in the support groups, and that's how it starts. And I invite them in to come in for a tour of our place because I want them to be comfortable the first time they come to a group. And basically then you're placed in a group.
Okay, so there's like an assessment, or you fill out a questionnaire?
It's kind of both. So we've got a package of forms that you have to fill in, and I take time to give them a tour of our place, and I take some time to talk with them about the death and their experience, because I want to make sure that they're prepared to be here and that we can decide together that this is going to be something that's helpful to them at this time. So that's how they get involved. And volunteers, of course, same thing. They give us a call. People hear about us. And most of our volunteers have been there and done it. They've experienced losses themselves when they were younger. And they just want to give back and help.
Well, it's actually very good to bring that sort of experience into the table, into the room. So if I had experienced that and then I'm now facilitating a group, I would understand because I've been in the exact place they're in.
Exactly. And that's why we call it peer support. But the peer support doesn't just hold for the age group of the kids, that group is, or the adults. Because, for example, I'm in most groups as a facilitator. And my experience also has been, my dad died when I was much younger. And I consider myself a peer in grief as well with the kids.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing that. Is there a website just where we can, or a number?
Yes, definitely. Our phone number is 905-337-2333, and our website is www.grievingchildrenlighthouse.org.
Before I leave, quickly, Britta, I wanted to ask you about funding for the organization.
Thanks very much for asking that. Nobody likes to talk about money, so we do need to talk about the money. Our program is free of charge, and the reason for that is that when a death happens in the family, finance is often an issue. the world is falling apart and lots of things are needed. So we don't want anybody not to be able to come to the group because they couldn't afford it. So to make it easy, we say the program is free of charge. The length of the stay is up to the family, and therefore we need to raise the funds to make sure that the family can stay in the program. A lot of the families donate themselves, but we have got many individual families who donate, who don't have any association with the Lighthouse other than the fact that they realize that this is important to provide support. We are funded by foundations. We are a United Way agency. We have had funding from the Ontario Trillium Foundation. We have got corporate funding. Some corporates run little fundraisers. We have the Youth Philanthropy Initiative. They are raising funds for us. We have sometimes people doing golf tournaments and we are the beneficiaries. We had a little boy of 9 who said instead of birthday gifts, he wanted a donation to the Lighthouse, and he brought us a check for $550.
Oh, wow.
At the age of 9, he got that he has more than he needs, and that the children who come here, they need this space. So that is wonderful, and we continually need to grow that pool of people who support us.
How much have you grown, speaking of growth?
We have, in the last 3 years, we've tripled in size.
Okay.
So this means this year we will need to raise $250,000, and we really need to get the support from the community to raise that money.
Does the money also go towards a wish list?
Yes. Wish list is on our website.
Mm-hmm.
You can donate on our website. You can donate through Canada Helps, and if you go to our website, all of that information is there. It shows us what we need. Also shows us how you can volunteer, so that you can either come and give us money, come and give us expertise. We have got a board of really wonderful people who are business leaders in the community, and have other expertise that they lend us. So there's all sorts of things that you can find out on our website.
And you have sponsors as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the sponsors are sponsor events and sponsor functions, fundraisers, etc.
Absolutely amazing. Well, Britta, thank you very much for filling in the gap there with the funding. And now obviously you know you can check out their website and call them as well to support or donate to the Lighthouse program for grieving children. Thanks again.